So what steps should this ESG executive or sustainability executive should take today to prepare for coming regulation or implementation of DPP?
So the first step is to understand what the requirements are, and that's to make sure that you meet those levels. And that can mean reading the regulation, talking to consulting companies, for example, like Protocol, and getting a good understanding of what is going to be required, and as much as possible understand when that needs to be. And then the next step is to then look at where is your company at today in terms of readiness. So how much of that data that we're talking about do you actually have? Where is that information today? And kind of create like a gap analysis, essentially, where you're at today versus where you need to be, and then create a plan for how you're going to get there from A to B in the time that you have. And then additionally, like we talked about, beyond that, as the sort of bare minimum requirement, look at with your business units, with your executives and your strategy team, look at how could we use the DPP as a tool for our business to create value as a differentiator potentially with our customer base, and explore ways that can be done as well.
What do you see that will be main challenges for businesses adopting this DPP systems?
I think one issue that we see very common, and I know very well myself being in a large company before, is that the DPP will actually require quite a lot of coordination, both within an organization, but also then within their value chain, both primarily a lot with their supply chain, but also with downstream actors like their customers, and understanding how they want to use the DPP. But at the basic level, we just look at an organization. You're going to need a significant engagement from your sustainability team. They're probably leading this initiative from a sustainability compliance perspective. You're definitely going to need engagement from your IT team, as this is essentially a digital component of your offering. And then you're going to need, for example, engagement from your sourcing team, because you're going to have a lot of discussions with suppliers and making sure that you getting the right data from them. And then, of course, you're going to need budgets. So you're going to need your leadership team engaged in understanding what you're doing, what is required. So I think that is actually going to be one of the biggest challenges is getting the ball rolling with all of these parts that have their day jobs. They're doing other stuff on a day-to-day basis. This can be a quite big undertaking. And I think also then being able to communicate internally the urgency or what is this new thing that we're having to do now, that is DPP. And it becomes not just something you do once, but it's actually something you have to manage continuously over time, right? So this becomes quite an integrated part of your whole business operation ultimately. And that's not something you can just, do overnight. So, coming back to how companies prepare, running pilots is another key component for getting ready. So don't try and just go from, 0 to 100 all in one step. Work with, service providers to run pilots and stress test your system. The software itself is one part, but like we talked about earlier, the data itself is a big part of this equation, and that ultimately companies are responsible for themselves. So I think getting the data that they need, getting the organization and other stakeholders engaged, those are the key challenges for organizations in preparing for DPP.